up, everybody? Back again with another episode of the Pop-Up Podcast. This is your boy, Stephen Motivate, here with my friend, my pastor, and yours,
Rev Andre M., a.k.a. Pastor Andre Mitchell.
What's up, Pastor?
What's up, bro?
Chilling. Thinking about how we can kind of dive into this topic of, how we bridge the gap between the secular world and the religious world. And, you and I were talking, and we know that in many cases you have chaplains in schools, chaplains in military, chaplains in hospitals, all that sort of thing. And, I guess from your perspective, you've already got a lot going on. You already work a full-time job, and you are a pastor of a church, providing counsel to a lot of peoples. What got you into chaplaincy, as I see on your shirt that you got on today, that you're a chaplain for your job? What got you into that?
So I am a licensed ordained chaplain from the UAW. I'm in Region 2B, which is the Indiana, Ohio area. And what got me in it is it's a story behind it, if you have time for a story.
I got time, Doc.
Okay, so I didn't want to do it. It's funny. Many things I'm doing, I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a pastor. Didn't want to be a chaplain, and here I am. So I've learned I don't know what I want to be. God knows.
Yeah.
So this will go to my passion. Like, well, let me explain why I didn't want to do it. I was already doing so much.
Right.
So on my job, I kind of wanted to get out of the pastor role, just have a moment to. I was in a spot where I was kind of by myself, so I can go and I didn't have to be around people a lot. Even though I'm a people person, when you do so much peopling, sometimes it can be draining.
Draining, a weight. I mean, it's like people then put expectations on you. I mean, that was one of the coolest things about when I moved down here. Didn't nobody know me. So all the expectations around, you're a pastor's kid or you're Reverend Mitchell's kid, all that kind of went away. And I could kind of write my own, story as to who I am. Obviously, it's still a part of me and people now know, but I could see that.
Yeah, I always tell people that I was an extrovert, but I'm learning I'm more of an ambivert. I'm extrovert and introvert. Yeah. But what helps me recover from being extroverted is when I can be introverted. And my job is where I could be introverted. I wasn't working. I drove a truck, like a fork truck, tow motor. So I could drive around, but I can get away from people. I didn't have to be right next to people. So chaplaincy was just the last thing that was on my mind. So we were, what year was it? It was 2020. We're down for our Christmas break. It is like the last day of the year or so, somewhere around the last days of the year. We have a funeral at our church for a church mother that I'm there for church mother. And while I'm there trying to tend to the funeral, do the things, my phone keeps buzzing and going off. But I'm in a funeral. I'm locked in. I'm not trying to pay attention to it. Another situation is going on. Our uncle Alcus had taken sick. And we had already buried our grandmother in July. Our Uncle Alcus had taken sick. And so there was a lot going on happening that day. By the time the funeral was over, we find out that our Uncle Alcus had died, that he died the same day of that funeral. I'm like, this is a lot. So when I pick up my phone, I have a whole bunch of messages saying, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm just like, no, I'm not okay because I just lost my uncle and I just buried a church mother. But I didn't know what they were talking about. Well, come to find out that there was a contractor at our job who was, our regular workers were out of there for Christmas shutdown. The outside contractors were in there, and there was a fatality. A man actually died on the job.
Oh, wow.
Well, the caveat was that he was a pastor.
Oh, wow.
And so people heard about a pastor dying at my job. We're putting two and two together, and they're checking on
you
on
to make
me.
sure it wasn't you.
Yeah, and I was just processing, thinking, this is 3 different deaths that I'm dealing with all on the same day. The person I'm burying, then my uncle. Now I'm hearing about another person on my job who's passed away. So that was a lot. So we roll into 2021, and I go back to work. The first week of the year, I'm back, and I get a call from the chairman and the president of the union. I get a call that they want to see me. I'm like, what do they want to see? I knew the chairman personally, and every now and then he would ask me to pray about situations. So I thought it was something like that. Mm-hmm. But he asked me, he's like, would you want to be the chaplain? Our other chaplain has retired, and she tapped you to take her place. I had never talked to her about me being a chaplain or anything.
Yeah.
She told the chairman, who knew me, that I would be a good replacement. And my immediate answer was, I was getting ready to say, no, I don't have time to do it. But before he proposed the question or formally asked me the question, he said this. He said, over the shutdown, we had a fatality. And she said that, there's a pastor that died. And I was like, yeah, I didn't know the guy, but I found out he was a pastor. And then he said there was nobody there to talk to his members. There's nobody from our job that could talk to his members in a spiritual way. This guy happened to be a Christian, but he's like, I'm not a pastor. He said, I wish there was somebody who could have made the connection for them, because that's what a chaplain does. They deal with happens on the job, but sometimes it extends outside of the job.
Right.
And it just hit me. If it was me who passed away, wouldn't it be nice to have someone from my job to minister to my congregation, to share condolences, and it just hit me. It's like, dang, this really ain't about me. I don't want to do it. I don't have time to do it, but I think God is asking me to step into this role based on all these other things that was happening. And then I thought about the fact that I was at a funeral when I first heard about the news. I was providing support to a family. And I was like, that's all it's doing. All I'm doing is extending what I already do.
Yeah.
So I prayed about it, and I came back and I said, I'll do it if I can have a team. And I found out that you can have as many people as you need on your team. And so I end up saying yes. And so, but that was the reason why I did it. So I accepted January 2021. Our father passes in October 2021. And one of the jobs that I had is that we hand out Bibles to loved ones' families when a loved one passes. And so I was able to give a Bible from my UAW department to my own mother and the passing of my father. And when she got it, how her face lit up, even amidst the tears. Yeah. And so I had done this to other people, but now it hit home because I'm doing it for my own family. And I was just like, wow, God kind of backdoored me into this extra role on my job, but I'm seeing the importance of it. And it's all you're doing. You're just being there for people in their time of need. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, God, I'll do it. And I've been training other people up to do it. So, because eventually I'll retire and I want someone to take my place. Right. So my team, I've got a good team, but I won't say God tricked me into doing it, but it was a bunch of circumstances that made me think, okay, I need to extend what I do outside the four walls of my church, even to my job in a more formal pastoral role, which is how my chaplaincy kind of works.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, because you don't think about the job having any sort of spiritual context or any even caring. Many times you see on Instagram, oh, if you die tomorrow, your job going to replace you in 2 seconds, which may be true, but the fact that some jobs still have this role of a chaplaincy to kind of acknowledge the fact that, no, we care about the loss and we care the fact that you're hurting, and we want to show our condolence, give you something, whether it's a Bible or something commemorative of the fact that we recognize the pain you're going through, and our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Yeah, and my job specifically, it's a union as well as a company. I work for General Motors, but we have a union, the UAW. And when you're in the union, you pay dues. So we use the dues to purchase the Bibles and our membership is not that big. And there was a time where they were thinking one of the things we could do is not purchase the Bibles because the type that we give are quite expensive. And the president was saying, I don't care what we do. I want to keep that ministry going.
Yeah.
Because it's a way to show care. It's a commemorative thing. And so sometimes unions get a bad rap, but there's a lot of good things that unions do. And in our case, the fact that chaplains are something that are elevated and wanted. We even, take prayer requests, just simple things in the job that you don't think happens in a job. But it's good to know that Christianity is bigger than a church building.
Right.
The actual tenets of what we believe and how we operate, it should outlast the four walls of a building. It should go beyond you. So
yeah, it's not just a church service where we clapping and toe tapping, but more so like when you think about a union, you really think about workers' rights and what rights do you have as a worker and who's protecting those rights. We just went through this longshoreman strike where they stopped all the ports and basically because their rights are not being honored or really taken serious. It has I know you're providing a spiritual component, but as y'all get into some of the, I would call this a Christian tenet to make sure people are fairly compensated and treated right on the job. Do you ever find yourself having to speak up on the issues of workers' rights in your capacity as chaplain?
No, not as chaplain. It's more of a neutral thing.
Okay.
But I think I did learn something. So the lady who tapped me to take her place when she retired, we were in a strike in 2019. We went through a strike, and on the picket line, I was a part of a group of people who were praying for others. Because when you're on the picket line, you don't get your regular pay, and you don't know how long you're going to be without pay. Mm-hmm. We got what we call strike pay, which is $250 a week, mm-hmm. which is not a lot when you have a family, you got mortgage, you got cars, and you're used to making X amount of dollars.
Right.
And so I was just doing my Christian duty, praying for people and trying to make sure people are okay. And I guess me being a light let her know that maybe I was the type of person that could carry on what she did. So I was just doing the work of a regular Christian. Yeah. I was on strike too. I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming.
Yeah.
But I have a trust and a faith in God that people who don't know God don't have. So I was standing in the gap, praying for people, helping. So that was a situation where we were actually striking for better rights, and the spiritual component came to it. But even in things like that, like going back to the grief piece, we are told how long we can grieve. If you lose a son or a spouse, you get 5 days bereavement. So, but you're supposed to be back on that job in 5 days.
Yeesh.
So it's good to have someone who's praying for you, because you may have to go back to work because you can't afford not to.
Right.
But to assume someone you love deeply that you can get over that in 5 days,
it's bizarre.
That's ridiculous. And so I know people who've lost their lives, and we have a team of people, we are praying for them. And then there's a lot of people who it's not grief or it's not workers' rights. They're just people who are sick. They have to work sick.
Because they only have so many sick days.
Yeah, sick days, or that they get diagnosed with something.
And they still got to come to work.
You have to work, and they may have to go through process of things. And so we try the people who are sick, and then there's other people who they have to be taken off of work because now they're going to have to be on rounds of chemotherapy. So it's good to know you have union brothers and sisters who know what you're going through, and they're praying for you and things like that. So it's deeper. But even outside of a union, just a job, period, just taking care of your fellow man and being concerned about what they're concerned about. It's so easier for us to hear, oh, so-and-so had cancer, or so-and-so lost their son, or so-and-so got sick. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, wow. And then we're on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. But to stop and to think and put yourself in someone else's shoes and say a prayer for them. And another thing that I thought is, like, I'm praying for people all the time anyway.
Right.
What does it hurt to add another 5 people to that list?
Right.
Another 5 situations. You know, so, I mean, it can be heavy, but, you know, I'm going to God in prayer anyway, so might as well add a few people, so a few coworkers, a few whatever. And what I say about chaplaincy, it does go beyond just workers' rights, because then there are sometimes people in management who recognize your call, and then they privately ask you for things. Hey, I'm going through this. Because even though you and your boss may not be aligned in the way you see how things are done, he's still a human, or she's still a human.
Is the management not a part of the union?
No, it's not.
So the management is part of the, you know, for at least the big 3, it's part of the company.
Yes, it's definitely split. You have union and management.
Okay.
And usually they try to work jointly, but usually they're not totally aligned on how they view things.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing to highlight, because you think of unions when they get flack, when people say, oh, a union is going to cause a strike or raise wages. You don't think about the fact that there are real rigid rules around returning to work when you're sick, or returning to work, you know, when you've lost a family member, and like you only get so many days because we got to get these cars out, we got to hit these numbers, we got to shareholders to, you know, management has to. So that is, I think you remind folks of the human element that is sometimes lost. And when we think of, oh, people are striking and they just trying to get more money, but it's like people have no idea that the details of the contract are very rigid, and that it's almost like the people are just another piece of equipment to get stuff done. And yeah, I see the huge importance in chaplaincy and making sure people know about it and tap into that, because gosh, who is thinking about the people?
And let me add something else. So when I talked about the fatality that happened, there was an outside contractor and an outside company, but because of the fatality, that company got fired. But all the people who worked under them, now they've lost job, and it may not have been their fault that the fatality happened, but because their parent company, they got fired, they lose.
Yeah.
And so it having some type of support that's outside of the company, it can be helpful.
Yeah, it's like, outside of business, because we're all humans at the end of the day. I mean, we tend to forget that when we're looking at numbers, but the numbers really don't matter. They matter in a small sense, but do they really matter? No. Does it, you know, oh, we got one more car off the line, or we beat our expectations, or we made a little bit more profit. It's like people is what matter.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the chaplaincy role is at least one sort of component to try to keep people at the center of what's going on versus just profit and money and productivity and all of that.
And there's a wisdom to understand that if the company loses money, we all are in trouble.
Right.
So you do want the company to make money, but at what expense?
Right.
There are certain rules called emergency status. When the emergency status is, they can work you as much as they need to. They can go above the rules, so to speak. Hey, we got to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can keep extending the hour because they're under emergency status. They got to make whatever. But and you and I were talking about it in another setting. But sometimes companies don't always show you the real profit.
Mm-hmm.
So they can say, "Hey, we have to put you on emergency status. We need this. We need this. We need this." You work all this hard, and then you find out later that CEO gets a bonus.
Right.
Or now we're cutting heads because we got enough profit, but you built the profit on our backs, and now we suffer because of the profit that you built on our backs.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you need somebody to stand for you. If slaves had a union, I wonder could they have got broken to freedom a lot
sooner.
Yeah. Because when people can profit off of you, they can get drunk on that profit and forget about you easily.
Completely, yeah. Squeeze every penny out of you, every working hour, every productive moment out of you. Well, it sounds like we need to call for an emergency status around here to get folks really producing.
Maybe I need to be a chaplain for your business. I need to add one more.
Yeah, give people that. But you bring up a good point, though. I mean, there is a human component to all this, and I think you can get so focused on the money and the productivity that we forget that these are real families, real people, real lives.
What expense does capitalism have? A culture of capitalism. What expense does that have? I'm not saying that capitalism is just the evil, but when you're in this American dream, dog eat dog mentality, sometimes it edges the Christian tenets out. Mm-hmm. We have to be intentional.
Pushing them back in.
To make sure we're pushing back in on both ends, because we do know workers who get over on the company.
Yeah.
This is your 12th grandpa that died somehow.
You ain't had 12 grandpas.
How is it?
My granddad died again. Did your granddad die last year and the year before that?
Yeah, like just something ain't right about it.
Yeah, my family dynamic, you just wouldn't understand it. That's funny.
So you do know, and so as a Christian worker, we realize that we are working for God.
Yeah,
we are giving our best.
What's that scripture? What is that in Colossians?
And all things you do to the glory of God.
Yeah,
so,
everything you do unto the glory of God.
Yeah, so it should be on that end, and then those who's on the management company side, the same thing. Because the scripture tells the master and how in the scripture calls is master slave, because that was the dynamic they had. But we can say employee. It tells the employee how to act for the employer and how the employer should act toward the employee. And if we do it biblically, you're going to have a prosperous success and good relationships. Sometimes we have prosperity at the expense of relationships.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to be cautious of, because it's really, in the end, not worth it.
Yeah.
Not worth it. Well, that's cool, man. Glad you're doing that. It sounds like a very important role. Shout out to all the chaplains out there that are bridging the gap, standing up for the people, being the human side of all this stuff going on, you know? And I know, where else do we see chaplains? Like I said, hospitals, military.
Yeah, hospitals, military, some colleges.
Yeah.
Like I said, certain jobs. There are police, fire chaplains, because a lot of times police and fire people and first responders, they see a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. So sometimes chaplains come and talk to them. Our father, back in the day, he was a chaplain for the fire department, chaplain for the police. Mm-hmm. Prisons need people going. And so chaplaincy is really huge. It's pretty much God in the workplace.
Yeah. Is it a coveted position? Do a lot of pastors know that they could reach out in their communities to be chaplains? Or
not that I know of that's something that's coveted, but it's probably something that should be, because it's stuff that pastors are doing already. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're in a small community or even a large community. When a tragedy happens, you get called anyway. You get called to the scene. So having some licensed training helps you be to where you know how to handle government agencies. You know what to do, what not to do. It's like when I function as a chaplain, I'm not functioning as pastor of Deliverance Temple.
Right.
So my denomination and my doctrine, that goes out the door. My service comes first.
Yeah, it's time to serve. It ain't time to go have a theological debate about whether you can speak in tongues or not. It's more so, no, let's get out here and serve the people and make sure they have the comfort and support they need.
And that's important. So it would be good for some people to get that training so that they know what to do, how to act, function. I'll give one story about that before we go. There was, I won't use, it was one of the big three. There was another fatality on a job, and the way the family felt is that the company didn't handle it very well. So a chaplain shows up to provide service, but he shows up in a suit and tie, and he got very cold looks until someone told them that he's the chaplain, he's from the union, he's this, that, and the other. So they thought he was from the company. And so what he learned to do is to wear a visible symbol that shows, no, I'm not company.
Yeah.
I'm here for support. Because whether right or wrong, sometimes when things like happen like that, family in trauma is looking for someone to blame. And sometimes the blame is true and real. Sometimes it's not. And you may be coming to provide service and you look like the problem.
You appear to be, on the opponent side. Yeah.
Yes. So he learned to wear something like what I have on that represents that I'm here, but as a chaplain, I'm neutral.
Yeah.
I'm not here for the company. I'm representing the union, but I'm not here for that. I'm really here to provide the service you need.
Human side of things, yeah. So, if y'all are out there and you are, you don't need a church to serve. You don't need, a big congregation to be able to be the, stand for the Christian tenets of service and helping folks. You could be a chaplain. Can non-pastors be chaplains if you're ministers?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so this is good for any ministers or pastors that are watching us today. Think about getting involved with your local community as a chaplain. Figure out who needs them, who might be retiring. Great for networking, making connections, but more so getting a chance to not just teach about Jesus, but represent him in a real way. So,
and there also are interfaith chaplains.
Okay.
Chaplains of other faiths. So even though you are serving for Jesus, those of you who are Christian, you don't go stepping on the Muslims' toes or the Buddhist toes. You work together to serve people. This is not about your doctrine and your belief system. This is about serving the community.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right. This is the Pop-Up Podcast. It's your boy, Stephen Motivate.
Rev Andre M., also known as Pastor Andre Mitchell, also known as Pastor, Chaplain, Counselor, a lot of things. It's good to see you.
All right. Until next time, peace.